As the waves crashed against the hull of the boat, I could feel my anger rising with each passing moment. The sea, which was once a source of calm and tranquility for me, now felt like an endless abyss of frustration and despair. It was then that I realized the true power of anger, how it can consume even the most peaceful of minds and leave us adrift in a sea of negativity. Join me as we explore the impact of anger on our lives and how we can learn to navigate these stormy waters with grace and resilience. Hello and welcome to Sea of Nerves. Our practices throughout this podcast will support your own worthiness and love, so you have a whole sea of nerves to be yourself throughout this healing journey we are about to embark on together. Welcome, I'm your host, Arian. And in today's episode, we'll discuss rage against the everyday, exploring the power and pitfalls of anger. I love Rage Against the Machine, so maybe we'll rage real, but in a good way. Rah! Rock on! So, we'll dive into the world of anger today and its effects on our daily lives and how to manage it more effectively. I'm definitely going to go listen to Rage Against the Machine after all this. No doubt. Can't stop laughing, so I hope everyone's getting a laugh out of this too. Before we get started, let's take a few deep breaths. We all know I need it. Let's set an intention. My intention today is whoever this finds that makes you laugh. It's making me laugh already, so whoever's out there, you got some laughing power energy and I love it. And we'll get acquainted with this step. So let's breathe in and breathe out. Whoever's sending me laughing vibes, I mean, I truly love it. It's great. I needed it. So, if you need to breathe in and out a few more times, please do so. And do it at your pace, no rush. Pause this recording if you need. I'm not going anywhere. And in last week's episode, Keeping Eyed Isolation, we discussed valuable insights into the different types of isolation, provided helpful tips for coping and overcoming it. But if isolation is left unhandled, it can be a breeding ground for anger and some of our other negative emotions. Not that our negative emotions are bad, but when they consume our lives, that's when we're letting our emotions take over our world. And that's maybe when we feel too isolated and we can feel disconnected from others, or maybe even unsupported. And these can lead to feelings of loneliness, frustration, resentment. I know I've felt those. And no one's perfect. You gotta work through those things a little bit at a time. These are negative emotions, and if we don't slowly work them down, they gradually build up and they intensify, leading to more feelings of anger and irritability without the outlet of any kind of support or social interaction in which is right for us, or boundaries, which is, I think, on the last episode when I mentioned our 5 people. That's why that's important. And that way we know who to come back to in these feelings of isolations and those feelings that people who respect our boundaries. So make sure they're our right people. Because if they aren't, it may feel like we're trapped. And it can feel like we're in our own negative thoughts and emotions. And it's just one big cycle of anger and isolation. So additionally, isolation can lead to feelings of helplessness. Maybe you even felt hopeless. And this can further exasperate these feelings of anger and frustration if we don't slowly take care of them. When we feel like we have no control over our circumstances, we may become more reactive to minor triggers, leading to these explosive outbursts of anger. That's why in this week's episode, we'll explore the power and pitfalls of anger. We'll discuss how negativity and anger can impact our lives, affecting our perception of reality, communication with others, and even our long-term physical health. We'll also dive into the strategies for coping with anger, including identifying the triggers and finding small steps to manage these emotions in a healthy way. Finally, we'll discuss the importance of letting go of anger and accepting our emotions as part of our personal growth journey. Though it's not the social norm, discussing anger and its impact on our lives is very crucial because it's a powerful emotion. Anger is powerful. It has significant consequences on our physical, emotional, and mental health. Anger can affect our relationship with others, our job performances, and our overall quality of life. It is important to understand the root causes of our anger, such as past trauma, current stressors, and learning how to effectively cope or have coping or just have coping mechanisms to manage this emotion in a healthy way. So maybe you're not going to cope with it each time, but having a mechanism to hopefully help you a little bit in coping it, that's all we're striving for. We're humans. We just are meant to be excellent, not perfect. And we're not always, as I've said before, we're not always going to have a perfect or most excellent day, but we can sure as hell give it 10%, and that's all we can do. And that's excellent right there. So just keep that in your back pocket. But if we can address our anger, we can improve our communication skills, reduce stress and anxiety, and ultimately lead happier and healthier lives. Excuse me. I just recently journeyed down this venture myself, and I had to address my anger face to face. It was uncomfortable. It was a lot of tantrums. Thank God for my husband's patience. I'll tell you what, if you know that reference, it's King of the Hill. But I just had to say it. And it was a lot of crying. So know that when addressing this, you're probably going to face some other emotions, and you might get frustrated and angry while you're dealing with being frustrated and angry. And it's okay. Just know you're not alone. I did it too, and there was a lot of crying and a lot of 2-year-old tantrums, throwing my limbs everywhere. It's fine, So what? Let it all out. Feels better than keeping it in. And doing so, I found all my life, I got told I was an angry kid. And I started asking around some other family members I lost touch with. And I didn't ask. They just were like, oh, you were the most happiest kid, always smiling, always being so happy. And it's just interesting that they told me the exact opposite, though I let certain family members pull me down to their level because they didn't enjoy seeing me happy, or for whatever reason it was, I wasn't allowed to express it, or if I did, certainly wasn't favored for it. I even remembered people going, God, I hate people who are happy. That's the kind of culture I was raised in. I remember specifically people going, happy people make me angry. Isn't that sad? I feel sad for those people. I really do. And I send them compassion because I hope their hearts can heal. Because being happy is better than being angry. And I realized, because I was told that I was angry all my life, it impacted now how I communicate with others. I felt in every situation, social anxiety crept up my throat, and I was scared. I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm too angry. I'm going to say something wrong. Am I going to offend them? And I overanalyzed every situation. Did I do something? Did I say something? Did I hurt them? Did I hurt their feelings? Did I offend them again? Did I, all these things cycling until I realized, oh wow, I just don't tell myself, oh hey, Darian, everyone loves you. You're beautiful. And those who don't, it's okay. We're just different. However, I also realized this came from some deeply rooted traumas and triggers. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. When I say if I say that I'm over them, because I'm not. My traumas and triggers is what I mean. I'm not over them yet. I'm still working on them. And that's why I said I'd be lying to you if I said that I was over them, because I'm not. But I do feel a lot less angry. And I just simply moved in each day with a little more grace and acceptance of where I'm at and what I have. A therapist gave me this technique a few years ago, and that's what's really helped me. And I want to share it with you guys because I feel like maybe it'll help someone out there. So it's called a grounding exercise in which you choose, bear with me if I have to recount this, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And if you do that grounding exercise, I promise you guys that it really helps just moving with, like I said, a little more grace and accepting of where you are. And as I've discussed before, I'm in the process of rebuilding myself every day. And I believe that's our journey as humans. It's all about growing into a new human again and again and again and again. So, and if you had yet to listen to Chaos to Reorder, which was episode 2, I would suggest pausing this episode and doing so, just because it'd greatly benefit you. As I keep referring to this process of rebuilding, I discuss it a lot in Chaos to Reorder, and so I'm going to keep referring to this process in probably every single episode. So if you haven't listened to it, I'd suggest just giving it a shot, just so you kind of understand where I'm coming from. But what happens when negativity and anger impact our communication with others, as it becomes distorted from our perception of reality? Well, when our brains get consumed by these negative emotions, we may view the world through a lens of negativity, seeing the worst in people and situations, which is what I was doing when and before addressing mine. And this habit can build over time without you even knowing it. And if it does, it continues to lead to a negative cycle of thought and behavior, causing us to interpret things in a distorted manner and react in ways that are not beneficial to ourselves and or others, just as I mentioned I was doing in my social interactions. And that's why I had to address my own triggers around this testy emotion of anger. I gotta get some water, hold on. Better than pausing it, honestly. So, if we address our negativity and anger, we can improve our ability to perceive reality objectively and communicate with others in a more constructive manner. And this can lead to more positive relationships, greater self-awareness, and an overall better quality of life. As of right now, I told you guys, I rebuild myself every day, but I have already noticed what it's done for my quality of life. Releasing this anger, letting it go. It's a beautiful awakening. It's a beautiful step to accept who you are and where you are at the present moment. And that's just it. This is the first step. You're listening to the first step. I mean, you wouldn't be here if you would, Just as I say in every other episode, if you keep listening, you wouldn't be here if you didn't want to better yourself. That's why you're here. So I hope you know that you're worthy and capable just as you are, because you're already growing. And the second you address those boundaries and practice more self-awareness, just keep practicing. Because as I've said on the other episodes, we're going to have to keep rebuilding. And the more we practice, the more we're going to be able to let go. And if we don't practice, we're not the ones keeping score, I promise you that. Our bodies are. And that's why I can't overstate the impact of anger it has on our physical health. It just can't be overstated. When we're experiencing chronic anger, our bodies release stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline. And this can lead to damaging effects on our immune system, our blood pressure, cardiovascular health. Over time, it'll just lead to more chronic diseases, such as autoimmune, movement disorders, such as mine, dystonia. And these chronic anger and stress has been linked to increased inflammation in the body, which can worsen these conditions. And even other conditions such as arthritis, asthma, and, like I've said, any other autoimmune or chronic diseases. So it is important to recognize these long-term physical effects that anger is taking place on our lives. And that's why it's important to take these steps to manage this powerful emotion effectively. By learning strategies to cope with anger, such as mindfulness, meditation, exercise we feel is right for us, we can reduce these stress levels and improve our overall health and well-being, which is what I wanted to try to provide in this podcast today, and even on my social accounts. So if you're not even sure maybe where to start with these strategies, I have a starting point for each of them on my Instagram account. And you can refer to them there anytime you need. They're there at any time. And I'm sorry, if you don't have Instagram, shoot me a message on the Buzzsprout. That way I can help you, because I have no problem helping you if you don't have that ability to access that. At this time, I just don't have anything else where to put it. So I apologize for the inconvenience. But as we take care of our emotional health, we can also take care of our physical health and prevent the onset of these chronic diseases or keep them from worsening by at least continuing to spread this awareness and love onto others, which is my intention with this podcast today. I hope you feel how worthy you are, that you feel some gratitude and joy that I currently feel. Enough to heal to do this in this podcast today, to spread the light in any way. And maybe you're wondering, or might be asking, well, that's nice and all, Darian, but how do I identify my triggers and cope with my anger? And since I'm going to tell you anyway, first, I want you to know you're already doing everything you can by being here with me today. What, yeah. Party, party, party. Water your flowers or don't. I'm going to give them to you anyway. Second, identifying any of our anger triggers is a super important step in managing this powerful emotion, and especially in a healthy way. Triggers especially are tricky because they can be anything from a person to a situation to a thought, a memory, a smell. A lot of things can trigger you. So just recognizing maybe what these triggers are by journaling them. That's what I personally do. I journal what my triggers are in my notes on my phone, just so I know how to communicate them, especially with my loved ones. It's important to know what they are. And then you can take steps to avoid and or manage them in constructive ways. As I've said, I have social anxiety, so I can get triggered by like loud noises and super like just a gathering of people, I get really triggered by that. So I have an escape plan. When if it gets too crowded, I leave and I apologize. I even tell some people I'm honest. I'm like, sorry, I'm an empath. I'm sensitive to these big crowds and large gatherings. So, I gotta head out, and just be kind about it. Just communicate why. And I've never had anyone had a bad reaction to that because it's honest, it's sincere. It's not me lying to them. It's not me going, hey, I gotta get out of here because I have another obligation. People can sense bullshit. We all can sense bullshit. And that's why we have a hard time. So it's human nature to have the fear of abandonment and losing trust in people. So being sincere is always better. That's why knowing these triggers is constructive in all sorts of ways. But, as I promised, here are some of the small steps we'll take to manage these anger triggers effectively right now. So, practicing self-awareness. Pay attention to the physical and emotional reactions. What I just said. Big parties. I paid attention to those. I'm like, ooh, don't like how I physically and emotionally feel. I feel my heart races. I feel like I need to please everyone, and I have a hard time calming down. There is nothing wrong with me putting a boundary in place because it's called fear it's called joy of missing out instead of fear of missing out. So I like to put that in my head that I'm having the joy of missing out because it doesn't fit me. So practice those self-awareness. Again, pay attention to what you're responding to, those physical and emotional reactions to situations, to even people. Identifying what those specific triggers are can help your anger, and it helps you realize what it feels like in the body and in the mind. Also, develop a plan. Once you have identified your anger triggers, which again, take small steps, just, observe yourself as an outsider, like an alien, if you will. I like to do that sometimes. I'm like, what would an alien, if they woke up in my body, like look around my surroundings and like look at things like, would they be, I think they would be like, whoa, this is really cool. Whoa, I have 10 fingers. I just think of those things, and I think that if we can take a step outside of yourself, it helps to be more obstructive. That way you don't get too consciously into your thoughts. That's why I said the alien thing kind of helps. But again, take what works for you and practice self-awareness first. Then once you have that, and take your time on step 1, don't rush that. Develop a plan. Once you've identified these anger triggers, develop a plan for how you'll respond when you're faced with these triggers. And as I said, that could be just taking a step back, using any of your any techniques you need, like the relaxation techniques I have. Like one is rubbing my hand if I feel too overwhelmed in a situation. I shouldn't say my hand. I use my right hand to rub my inner left wrist. And that's just softly, if that helps anyone. It really helps me. I know I gave the tip to a few other people and it helped them, so maybe it'll help you. Water break. And so using any of those relaxation techniques is going to help you engage in that positive self-talk, because you have these plans. Like I said before, I have a plan for if a gathering gets too large. I have an exit strategy. And I also have a smoothing relaxation technique to get me to that strategy. So again, just put a plan that works for you in place. And just do one trigger at a time. Don't feel like you have to take on every trigger. That's not going to be helpful if you feel like you're going to have to take on every trigger. Just focus on one at a time, whichever one feels best for you. And then once you can do that, you can communicate it effectively, just as I brought up with how I do it with friends and loved ones. And learning these effective communication skills help us express the emotions in such a constructive way We reduce the likelihood of conflict and misunderstandings. As I said, people can detect bullshit. So why not just be sincere? And there's no need to hide it. As I like to say, if the shoe fits, fucking wear it. Wear it. Don't hide from yourself. Just be yourself. Everyone will love you, I promise. And that's the best part, is use humor after that. Use humor. Humor can be a powerful tool in diffusing anger and tension, helping us find perspective and lighten the mood in difficult situations. And if none of those help, I would really suggest seeking professional help. And I can tell you that I used to see a therapist once, 2 times a month for a good 2 years straight, and that was the best thing I could have done for my mental health, by far. I can't stress enough how significant it is to have help from a therapist or a counselor, especially if you're trying to deal with your anger and if it's interfering with your daily life or even causing significant distress, because it's not worth it taking over your life. So I'd highly suggest seeking professional help with seeking out a therapist, by calling around. It's no easy feat, especially with those of us who have chronic disorders, and we're already doing so much work to find doctors and things like that. I know it's not easy, but it is worth it. Just maybe set an intention that I'm going to find a therapist and I'm going to find it at my time. Write it down somewhere and forget about it. And when the teacher shows, they'll show. So maybe that's all the work you need to do. So don't overthink it either. These small steps to manage our anger triggers is a huge help in learning to cope with the powerful emotion, and in a healthy and a constructive way. You've reached the end of this tape. Please flip it over to access part 2. As I said, use humor. I said whoever's sending me these laughing energy, I'm loving it. This is great. Anyway, really, there is a part 2 to this series. Part 2. So, we're going to cope with our anger in part 2, and that's just on the next episode. Just go ahead and click on next. Click on to part 2. Learning to cope. See you there.